Another new trail is being blazed, this time to the south, far more significant in its implications because this trail, the great Pan-American Highway, will affect the lives of not one, but 21 different republics. Today, the friendly hand of North America clasps that of its good neighbors to the south through this broad ribbon of friendship and goodwill, winding its way 11,000 miles from Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In the wake of this great international system of highways will follow an expanding commerce, a common culture, a greater industrial development, and a more friendly understanding and appreciation of our mutual interests. The International Bridge at Laredo, Texas, is the first link with our Latin American neighbors. Across the bridge is Nuevo Laredo, and immediately you realize that you're not in the United States, for people as well as architecture and customs are different. Mexican Highway number 1 plunges quickly into the desert country of northern Mexico, where modes of transportation are still antiquated, and sights such as these are common. For miles, a well-paved, straight asphalt ribbon heads southward to Monterrey, third city in size and industrial center of Mexico. Sprawled out in the mountain foothills, smokestacks and church spires reach skyward in a curious mixture of the old and new Mexico. Monterrey is neither American nor typically Mexican, for despite new modern buildings, movies and nightclubs, an old Spanish atmosphere prevails, reminiscent of bygone days and customs. Leaving Monterrey, the highway passes through a distinctly different country. Orange and lemon groves skirt the road, and picturesque farms dot the hillside. Fields of corn and vegetables are common as the agriculture of Mexico unfolds. In many instances, primitive farming methods are still employed, but the Pan-American Highway holds forth the promise of a higher standard of living and more modern industrial and agricultural methods. However, the old gives way to the new in Mexico City itself. With its beautifully landscaped streets and modern buildings, it's a progressive, thriving city, seething with activity. The nation's capital is the heart of this great country and pride of every Mexican. The Palace of Fine Arts is the cultural center of the nation, while many large government buildings add a majestic touch to the city's atmosphere. Just outside of Mexico City are the famous floating gardens, a series of canals interspersed with islands covered with flowers and vegetables. On Sundays and holidays, the nearby residents spend the day being pulled about in flower-bedecked boats of all descriptions. Floating restaurants, photographers, and vendors ply the canal selling their wares, while wandering musicians fill the air with best-loved Mexican songs. The floating gardens typify the Mexican, his love of flowers and music, his gay, carefree spirit, his appreciation of nature and beauty. South of Mexico, hazardous, and for many years this type of construction prevailed. Today, however, rapid progress is being made on this phase of the Pan-American Highway, leading to Guatemala. The Indians encountered in southern Mexico still practice many dances of former days, one of the most elaborate being the dance of the conquistadores, employing grotesque feathered costumes and strange rituals, reminiscent of the days when an ancient civilization dwelt in these structures. Today we marvel at the temples, terraces, patios, and homes of these prehistoric peoples. Some of the geometric ornamentations are the most distinctive and elaborate in Mexico. Great steps lead up to beautiful temples and palaces, while large central plazas reveal the modes of living and customs of this ancient civilization. The agriculture in this section of Mexico is also quite primitive. Burros and oxen supply the power, and tools are crudely shaped from wood. Threshing is a laborious process by this method, but perhaps in the future, modern power farming machinery will enable the Mexican farmer to enjoy the same ease and comfort as his American neighbors. Separating Mexico from its sister republic of Guatemala is the Suchiate River, which is crossed by the famous Talisman Bridge. On the other side, the highway climbs steeply into friendly and beautiful Guatemala, Despite the rugged landscape, this country is renowned for its gaily colored hand-woven cloth, considered by some experts as the finest example of hand weaving in the world. Often called the Switzerland of America because of its sheer mountain beauty, Guatemala abounds in scenic grandeur. These natives are on the shores of beautiful Lake Atitlan, a brilliant blue jewel in a volcanic mountain setting. Modes of living run the scale in Guatemala, from the primitive, crude native huts in the country to the immaculate cleanliness and modern structures of cosmopolitan Guatemala City, with its wide paved streets and beautiful, well-kept plazas. Here in the capital city, you find ultra-modern hotels, air-conditioned theaters, traffic policemen, and modern shops, only a few blocks removed from the cobbled streets over which picturesque carts clatter, and life seems to have moved back 100 years. Guatemala's southern neighbor is the thriving country of El Salvador. Lakes, large country estates, hills, and volcanic mountains provide a constant change of scenery, while many small villages dot the countryside. Luxuriant crops, of which coffee is the most important, are in evidence on all sides. Although the beauty of El Salvador lies in its verdant countryside, it's a land of thriving towns and small cities. Its industrious people are perhaps more attuned to American hustle and bustle than any other Latin American country. Definitely not a land of mañana. They call themselves the Yankees of Central America, and with grading and paving of their section of the Pan-American Highway, a stretch of 180 miles over rugged terrain. The city of San Salvador can be aptly called the tin plate capital, so called because corrugated sheet iron on a steel or wooden beam framework forms the construction of most of its buildings. This type of construction suffers least from the devastating effect of earthquakes which frequently rock the city and surrounding countryside. One of the most picturesque sights in El Salvador is the colorful straw hat market at Santa Rosa, near the Honduranian border. Travel in this section of the country had its difficulties, but with the coming of the highway, modern bridges will cross rivers and streams. The highway now leads to San Lorenzo, Honduras, whose bustling, thriving waterfront is a beehive of activity under a brilliant tropical sun. If you remain on the highway, your stay in Honduras is brief, only 90 miles lying between the Honduranian borders. Most of the country is to the left as you travel southward, and the highway does not pass through the capital city. At many places along the highway, modern steel suspension bridges are found. These big, modern structures seem almost out of place, in sharp contrast to their primitive native surroundings. This imposing bridge at Choluteca is the largest of several financed by the United States, evidence that Uncle Sam is vitally interested in having the highway completed as quickly as possible. This nameplate gives credit where credit is due. Near the border, travel becomes increasingly difficult over a rugged trail, passable only on foot, horseback, or mule, but which soon will be replaced by a modern all-weather road over which you and your family can motor in solid comfort into Nicaragua. At Tipitapa in Nicaragua, the highway winds between two beautiful lakes, but lakes here are more than beautiful and serve both for bathing and laundering, as in many Latin American countries. Most of the population of Nicaragua, largest of the Central American republics, resides in 5 towns, of which Managua is the capital. Almost completely destroyed by earthquake in 1931, Managua has since built up a more modern city, with some paved streets, a sorely needed sewage system, and many reputedly earthquake-proof buildings. So, as was often the case in these countries, the earthquake proved to be a blessing in disguise. Most of the imports and exports of Nicaragua go through the port of Corinto, located in one of the most beautiful natural settings of any port along the Pacific coast of Central America. Although a great portion of the Pan-American Highway is being constructed with tractors, bulldozers, scrapers, and other modern earth-moving tools, some sections are being built slowly and laboriously by hand methods. Inexpensive and abundant hand labor makes this economically possible. The church plays a dominant part in the lives of all Latin Americans. Here at Rivas, colorfully bedecked natives take part in this solemn religious procession. Farming in the lands of our southern neighbors is, with few exceptions, still done in primitive style. Here, near the Costa Rican border, we see a native Nicaraguan threshing rice in the same manner that his ancestors have used for generations. Across the border in mountainous Costa Rica, agriculture is not much further advanced, and crude implements plow sugarcane fields. Oxen furnish an important source of power to the rural Latin America, and scenes like this are common on every road in every country. Costa Rica is primarily an agricultural land, coffee being its principal crop and bananas running a close second. San Jose, the capital, is a cosmopolitan city. Unlike other Latin American countries, the population of Costa Rica is predominantly white. Its people are industrious, its women are beautiful. Progressive leaders have recognized the value of education, and even the most isolated villages have good schools. In fact, Costa Rica boasts more teachers than soldiers. Cartago, the former capital where this coffee is being unloaded, Heredia, and Alajuela are the principal Costa Rican cities. Some of the most difficult road-building conditions of the entire Pan-American highway were encountered in southern Costa Rica. Dozens of swift, unbridged mountain streams make it impractical to follow the west coast, and so the route swings over the Talamanca Range, through the famous Paso del Muerto, the Pass of Death, at the frigid height of 10,000 feet. From the lofty Costa Rican mountains, the road descends into Panama, crossing the imposing Chiriqui Bridge, largest in Panama, and a gift from the United States. Native Indians in their colorful tribal costumes are a common sight along the way. They pose willingly enough, but seem a little awed by the camera. Here the highway closely hugs the west coast, and the broad expanse of the Pacific can frequently be seen. A few miles along, a colorful, grotesque group of devil dancers performs a religious ceremony. Looking at these weird figures, it's not difficult to travel back in imagination to the days of their primitive ancestors. Like all Latin American countries, the principal industry of Panama is agriculture, and bananas are one of the more important crops, as they are in many of the neighboring republics. The banana crop is cut by hand, and the stems are loaded on the familiar long-eared mule to be carried to market or dock. And so on to the big ditch, the commercially and strategically important Panama Canal, which cuts two continents asunder. Panama City, largest in the zone, is a mixture of the very old and the extremely modern, as is also Colón on the other end of the canal. And the contrast of the old sections with the new modernistic buildings is startling. Most of us think of the canal zone as American, but it's not, being only leased in perpetuity for $10 million down and $250,000. Life in the zone is economical. No income tax, custom duties, nor excise tax. For example, American cigarettes cost only 80 cents per carton. However, a zoner cannot, and if an alien is not guaranteed American citizenship. Everything in the zone is government-owned and operated. Because of the wild and impenetrable jungle between Panama and Colombia, the highway now ends at the Momone River. For some time to come, traffic will have to ferry to Venezuela, third largest oil producer in the world. One of its chief harbors here at La Guaira handles a huge volume of commerce. A good highway leads to Caracas, the nation's capital. Subject to earthquakes, the people have learned to build close to the ground, and buildings over a few stories high are rare indeed. That Venezuela has made use of the wealth from her oil fields is evidenced by a progressive highway and public works program. This section of the International Highway, for example, is a two-lane concrete thoroughfare from Caracas to Valencia, some 97 miles away. Before fine roads like this could be built through much of this rugged territory, the land had to be cleared. In many cases, big diesel tractors and bulldozers did the job, pushing over trees and underbrush. Crossing Venezuela on the Trans-Andean Highway is a memorable experience. From desert wastelands like this, the road circles and loops up and over the Andes 3 times at heights up to 13,000 feet, with vegetation so scarce that this native feeds his goats on the scanty foliage of the trees. High in the mountains at La Negra Pass, agriculture is also still in the primitive stage. Witness this century-old method of threshing wheat, with horses' hoofs beating out the heads of grain. After crossing the Simón Bolívar Bridge at the Colombian border, villages like this one are encountered on the highway over the Andes to Bogotá, the capital city. A spectacular journey of breathtaking mountain scenery. The city of Bogotá is a pleasant place, distinctively a cultural center and deserving of its title, the Athens of America. The streets are always crowded with people going out to keep warm, because at 8,500 feet above sea level it is chilly in the shade and the buildings are unheated. Eventually, the highway will head into Bogotá from Panama along this partially completed stretch running through the fertile Magdalena River Valley. Northwest of Bogotá is Medellin. Here a modern diesel motor grader is used in maintaining the city streets and the construction of new roads. The use of modern road machinery like this is becoming increasingly evident in Latin America as the progressive road building programs of many of these countries are put into effect. Leaving Medellin, the road clings precariously to mountain slopes as it winds and twists its way northward to Dabeiba, at present the northern terminus of construction in South America. North of Dabeiba, some of the right-of-way has been surveyed, and a path cut through the verdant jungle to the Atrato River basin, a formidable obstacle yet to be conquered. Southward, many picturesque mountain villages are passed en route to Ecuador. At the southern border town of Ipiales, it's market day, and one is amazed at the profusion of goods offered for sale. Carrots, cabbages, potatoes, peppers, corn, wool, sisal, cotton, brightly colored shawls, and handmade shoes and sandals. Crossing the bleak and barren Paramo high in the Andes Mountains, the road soon enters Ecuador. The Pan-American Highway, traversing some sections where roads have never been built before, will mean much to the welfare of the countries through it passes. It'll link them together with ties of commerce and strengthen their bonds of friendship and understanding. To natives like this, it will mean a far better way of life. Continuing southward now, the highway approaches the middle of the world, marked by the famous equatorial monuments with the peaks of the Andes towering on all sides. Steep and hilly, Quito, the capital city, is located on the slope of a great mountain valley more than 9,000 feet above sea level. Its Spanish colonial churches and convents are architectural gems. While cool at night, its climate is pleasant, Quito being known as the city of eternal spring. In the country, many of the small native farms are engaged in raising sugar cane, and here juice is still extracted with a crude ox-driven mill. Some citrus fruits are grown in this section, as are potatoes, which are being gathered by this group of colorfully bedecked natives along the road. Travel speed is often slackened by natives driving a herd of sheep or llama to market. One never ceases to be amazed at the ability of the Indians to weave or spin as they go about their daily tasks. Regardless of where they are, walking along the road, at the market, whatever they're doing, they have with them their weave, turning out beautiful work as they go along their way. The waterfront at Guayaquil, chief port of Ecuador and the most important commercial city in the country, is always a picturesque native contrast to the fine park and promenade on the shoreline. Concrete, stucco, and stone buildings make up the business section, and the city is clean with a fine record of health. Here also is the inspiring monument erected in honor of Bolivar and San Martin, the two great liberators of South America. Leaving Ecuador now, the highway skirts the ocean shore through the vast desert areas. Here, a well-built, wide asphalt highway, which is typical of all the good roads in Peru, stands ready to welcome travel and commerce. Students of early American life find Peru a veritable gold mine of interest, for the ruins of many an ancient civilization are found here, some of them even antedating the Incas, like these famous Chan Chan ruins. Ever southward, the highway moves along the Pacific. After passing through many charming and picturesque Peruvian towns, it arrives at length in Lima, the nation's capital and one of the most beautiful Latin American cities. Although built into a modern city of 400,000 inhabitants, remnants of the once proud capital of Spain's colonial empire are still standing. The great open square, the Plaza de Armas, is still essentially as Pizarro laid it out. On one side is the stately old cathedral where rests the mummified body of the great conqueror himself. The Archbishop's palace is more modern, but built in old-style architecture, while the imposing government palace dominates the other side of the plaza, a massively beautiful structure set back from the street and protected by the traditional guards in their black and scarlet uniforms. Leaving Lima, the highway moves along southward through fields of sugarcane, rice, and cotton, and the ever-present herds of llama often block the road and slow down traffic to a snail's pace. Now the road descends into a vista of rugged mountain scenery. Here, Andean peaks thrust their snow-capped crowns upward in regal splendor into a cold blue sky, and fleecy white clouds floating lazily by add a touch of almost indescribable beauty as the highway twists and turns and doubles back in its tortuous ascent. Soon it passes through the heart of Peru's copper smelting industry. Here, high in the Andes, smelting plants are producing large quantities of this important metal. This region, near Cerro de Pasco, is both beautiful and practical, for it abounds in rare metals. Important vanadium deposits and extensive silver mines are found here, as well as deposits of lead, zinc, antimony, tin, bismuth, and molybdenum. In Peru also, the llama is the principal beast of burden. Numerous herds are encountered, and here an Indian herdsman demonstrates his woolen sling, which he uses with astounding accuracy on the errant members of his flock. Nearby is the rare vicuña, wild cousin of the llama. One must be careful when approaching either of them because of their vile habit of spitting when irritated. Soon the road reaches high, barren ground at the edge of a valley, where it dips down to the shores of enormous but beautiful Lake Titicaca. Here on the shore is another group of native dancers in their brilliantly colored costumes against a backdrop of ripening grain. The sparkling lake and the bright blue sky form a picture long to be remembered. Lake Titicaca is in reality a vast inland sea, its surface covering an area of 3,200 square miles. It's the highest navigable water in the world, in the heart of the Andes at an altitude of 12,500 feet above sea level, so large that ocean-sized steamers ply their way between its principal ports. This oversized blue jewel in its rugged mountain setting is an important link in the interchange of trade between Peru and Bolivia. After traveling over miles of high, level, barren plateau, a huge mountain bowl looms up, in the center of which lies La Paz, highest capital in the world and heart of one of the most important tin-producing nations. La Paz, too, is a beautiful and more modern city than one would expect hidden away in this mountain valley. Streets are wide, clean, and well-maintained, while its buildings rival those of many larger American cities. The population of Bolivia is more than half Indian, and the gay costumes of the natives strike a colorful note against the imposing colonial buildings and modern office structures. Crystal clear and deep blue glacial streams abound in this region and flow down from the mountain tops to supply the needed moisture for Bolivia's agriculture, most of which is still in the primitive stages. The branch of the Pan-American highway system extending through Bolivia continues on to Buenos Aires, Argentina, but from Peru another branch continues on to Chile. Located here are the once prosperous nitrate fields. Even with introduction of modern machinery, Chile now produces only 8% of the world's nitrate, as compared to the 90% she produced before the First World War. In spite of this, however, the large-scale nitrate plants are very impressive. Leaving this barren land, the highway now swings down to the rocky shores of the Pacific, and vistas of rugged beauty are a welcome relief from the monotony of the desert scenery. Continuing southward, this fine paved road runs through the thriving port of Valparaiso to Santiago, some 80 miles inland. Although modern cities are commonplace in South America, agriculture has not kept pace, and for the most part is still carried on in a somewhat primitive manner. Progress is being made, however, and an ever-increasing amount of modern mechanized farm machinery is seen, like this diesel crawler tractor and plow, turning over more earth in an hour than 10 natives could turn over in a day of back-breaking toil. Mechanization of both industry and agriculture will bring a new and better way of life to all of our Latin American neighbors. Santiago lies nestled in a broad, fertile valley, rich in agriculture and commerce, a natural garden spot with the lofty Andes peaks in the background. The highway gradually descends into the valley, but a splendid view of this modern city is obtained from observation points along the route. Santiago is a city both old and new. Fourth largest in South America, it has the bustle of a thriving metropolis, and yet there are numerous parks and quiet places. Skyscrapers stand out in distinct contrast to old Spanish churches and buildings, and there are no slums. Both men and women are smartly dressed, and they walk with the brisk stride of a North American. Yes, tourists from the United States would feel very much at home in this pleasant atmosphere. Large quantities of fruit are grown in Chile and are sold everywhere on the street. Chileans are a cultured people interested in the arts, music, science, and literature. Newsstands on every corner carry every type of magazine found in the United States, and there are many fine bookstores. Santiago is the southwest terminus of the Pan-American Highway, and here the road turns sharply to the east and heads directly into the Andean foothills. Now the road thrusts itself up and over the Andes once more and sets its course for Buenos Aires in Argentina. This section of the road passes through some of the most breathtaking and spectacular mountain scenery in the world. On all sides, one is surrounded by towering Andean peaks, their crevices streaked with snow, and their summits jutting heavenward into a cold, crystal clear blue sky. For miles, the highway zigzags upward until at last, after an ascent of many thousands of feet, it reaches the summit of the Christ of the Andes Pass. Here, on the Argentine-Chilean border, stands this huge bronze figure of Christ with a cross at his side and his hand uplifted, symbolic of the goodwill existing between these two great nations. Soon the road descends on the eastern side of the Andes amid a panorama of mountain splendor and speeds across the famous Argentine Pampas, which stretches out endlessly to an ever-receding horizon. The scenery is unchanging except for an occasional ranch house, for this is in the heart of the cattle country, home of Argentine beef, for which the country is famous. It has been estimated that more than 33 million head of livestock roam the Pampas, including dairy herds, sheep, horses, hogs, and mules. Colorfully dressed gauchos are counterparts of the American cowboy, with their boleadoros consisting of 3 weights attached to rawhide thongs, which wrap themselves around the legs of cattle when thrown. The road is blocked occasionally by herds of milling sheep, which represent not the least important part of Argentina's livestock program, making it the second largest exporter of wool in the world. Characteristic of the Pampas are the unforgettable sunsets, as the entire sky radiates the reddish reflection of the Argentine sun disappearing under the horizon. Approaching Buenos Aires, a modern 2-lane concrete highway has been built on which traffic rolls at a rapid pace. The Argentine road program is a very progressive one, and many fine highways like this bear witness to that fact. The average American will be amazed on his first visit to Buenos Aires, capital of Argentina and South America's largest city. He will find things superior in some respects to any of the large cities at home. Quiet, clean subways, vast underground parking areas, and service stations in the center of the city. Here the waters of the mighty Atlantic Ocean left the sandy beaches of a charming, friendly, but completely modern metropolis. And it is with reluctance in one's heart that BA is left behind as the highway now swings north along the Buenos Aires shoreline toward its bustling harbor. Directly across the River Plate is Uruguay, and the start on the last lap of the road toward Rio de Janeiro. One's first glimpse of Uruguay is the impressive skyline of Montevideo. 1/3 of this small country's population lives here in its charming capital. In Uruguay, one finds democracy at work. For the secret ballot, industrial insurance, old age pensions, and the 8-hour day are guaranteed by the Constitution. Uruguay has an excellent highway system, and traffic moves rapidly along, particularly northward toward her good neighbor, Brazil. Here the highway will eventually skirt the shoreline, then lead into the rolling red hills of southern Brazil. Moving ever northward, it leads through many small and medium-sized towns and villages. All are neat and clean, and their people are largely of the white race. Some of the larger cities, like Curitiba, the stately capital of Paraná, have impressive churches, modern buildings, and lovely parks. North of Curitiba, the road twists and turns through the hills. Few of the roads in Brazil are paved at present, but rapid strides are now being made in this direction. Progressive government leaders realize the importance of a good system of roads, and all over Brazil, tractors, scrapers, and bulldozers are at work, moving huge loads of earth, pushing their way through mountainsides, clearing away jungles, building a network of roads that will bring a better way of life to the people. These giant Alice Chalmers tractors are working on the Pan-American Highway, moving tons of the tough red earth of southern Brazil. It is equipment like this which is making the dreams of the planners of this great network of roads a reality. Soon the heart of Brazil's livestock industry is encountered, and it's frequently necessary to slow down, allowing a herd of cattle to cross the road. Horses, sheep, and hogs are also raised in this area. Agriculture is the principal industry of Brazil, and although coffee is the principal crop, cotton is becoming increasingly important, and many bales are being exported to the United States. Rio de Janeiro, the journey's end, is the next objective, for there are no roads of any account north of Rio. The harbor here is probably the most beautiful in the world, as 365 mountain peaks surround the bay in which it lies. Famous among them is Sugarloaf Mountain, which can be ascended by cable car. Rio is a gay city, the Paris of South America. Beautiful beaches, luxurious hotels, the casinos and the climate create an atmosphere of delightful leisure. Since 3 out of every 4 cups of the world's coffee are produced in Brazil, it's a nation of coffee drinkers, and there is nothing more pleasant than the sidewalk cafes and their delectable demi-tasse. The clean, wide streets, the shaded boulevards and rugged beauty of the surrounding mountains make it one of the garden spots of the world. The temperature, hot at midday, is tempered by a cooling ocean breeze. Flowers are grown in profusion here and can be purchased reasonably at the numerous sidewalk flower markets. Renowned among the mountain peaks surrounding Rio is the Hunchback, or Corcovado Mountain, and from its summit a magnificent panorama unfolds. Far below lies the crowded city, reaching out to the crescent-shaped beaches, beyond which is the sparkling bay surrounded by towering peaks. And here atop of Corcovado stands the statue of Christ, his arms extended in the spirit of peace and universal brotherhood. Yes, this is the end of the highway, but it's only the beginning of a glorious future for all of the American Republic, a future in which all nations can live in peace and security. Then will the words of South America's great liberator, Simón Bolívar, become a reality. For a united America will be able to call herself the Queen of Nations, the Mother of Republics.